Captain Darnell Brooks arrived at Station 53 just before 6 a.m., the sky still a slate gray, and the diesel hum of fire engines already warm in the bays. He pressed his palm against the biometric scanner next to the heavy steel door, twice. The green light blinked red. Frowning, he swiped his badge. No beep, no click. He tried again, then jabbed the touchscreen keypad. His personal code, 5 digits he had memorized since the academy. Still, nothing. Darnell? Lieutenant Mason's voice drifted from inside as the bay doors rumbled open. Darnell peered through the narrow window slits in the door, his crew moving through morning drills, oblivious. Mason raised an eyebrow at the locked door, mouthed, "You good?" Darnell pounded on the steel frame. "Let me in. I'm Brooks." Inside, the firefighters laid out hoses and secured breathing apparatus. Chief Reynolds's black SUV sat idling in its stall, a silent sentinel. Darnell swallowed bile as he realized the lockout was no accident. His recent complaint about promotion bias, too forceful, too public, had evidently prompted retribution. His chest tightened. He tapped the emergency intercom but got only static. A crackling alert burst from Darnell's radio. Box 412, 2-alarm residential fire, Maple and 6th. Engine 53, respond. Flames licked the sky in the distance, a dark plume rising. Around him, Station 53 sat silent behind its secured doors. Without a station key, Darnell had two choices: watch his men run into the blaze without his command, or find another way in, and fast. He sprinted to the side garage door, the keypad glowing beside it. He punched in the override code, his override code, used only in true emergencies. Again, red. His heart pounded. Leaving his badge on the pad, he risked locking it down entirely. But the fire and the lives at stake weighed more. With a muttered curse, Darnell kicked at the door's flimsy panel. Metal groaned but held. Through a narrow gap, he glimpsed hose engine 53's bumper. He wrapped his gloved hand around the edge, yanked, and the panel popped free. Heart hammering, he crawled through, scraping his turnout pants. Inside, alarms sounded and firefighters looked up in surprise as he emerged from the shadows. "Mason!" he barked, pulling on his helmet. "Give me command, now!" Lieutenant Mason hesitated, then ducked under the dangling panel to join him. Darnell strode past rows of equipment, soaked his mask in decontaminant, and clipped his radio to his gear. The engines rumbled as they pulled out, Darnell at the front, his cuffed sleeves, evidence of his defiance. As they barreled toward Maple Street, Darnell felt the weight of that locked door and the determination hardening in his chest. Politics be damned. Once the sirens wailed, his duty to protect every life would override any petty slight. And when this fire was out, he vowed, even Chief Reynolds would have to answer for the door he locked behind him. Within 5 minutes, Engine 53 roared to a halt in front of the 2-story duplex at Maple and 6th. Flames belched from a second-floor window, thick black smoke billowing into the dawn sky. Neighbors stood back, faces etched with fear. Darnell Brooks leapt from the cab, gear snapping into place, voice authoritative. "Team A, advance with 1 3/4 inch line. Team B, search the first floor for occupants." He vaulted over fallen siding and jagged debris, the heat intense even 50 feet away. At the front door, Darnell paused only to shove his mask into place, then kicked it inward, sending a cloud of embers scattering. Inside, pockets of fire roared in the living room. The floor groaned under his boots. He dropped to one knee, unspooled hose, and let a powerful water stream into the flames, forcing them back. Behind him, Lieutenant Mason barked updates. "No victims found on first floor." Darnell nodded, chest heaving. He radioed command, "Alpha team clear, advancing upstairs." Flames licked the banister as he ascended the narrow staircase, each step slick with melting vinyl. Heat soared. Visibility dropped to mere feet. He moved methodically, hand trailing the wall, until he heard a faint cough from the smoke-filled hallway. There, huddled in a bedroom doorway, was Mrs. Alvarez, coughing violently, eyes wide with terror. Darnell rushed forward, yanked her into a rescue drag, and urged, "Stay low! Breathe through the mask!" He shielded her with his coat as he backed down the stairs, the ceiling groaning overhead. Back outside, paramedics took Mrs. Alvarez. She gasped a relief through oxygen, and Darnell turned without skipping a beat. A second alarm rang. Reports came in of a trapped terrier on the upper deck. He grabbed an axe from the rig, sprinted around the charred back porch, and hewed at the deck door. Splinters flew as he smashed through, then crept inside, smoke choking. There, whimpering on a scorched chair, was the small dog. Darnell scooped it up, cradling it in his arms as he crawled back through the jagged opening. As the blaze finally yielded to coordinated suppression, Darnell stepped to the curb, removing his mask. Chief Reynolds, sleeves rolled and face streaked with soot, approached. Darnell handed over the terrier, safe if shaken, and watched the chief's expression shift from guarded to grateful. "Good work, Captain," Reynolds said, voice low. "Couldn't have gotten them out without you." Darnell met his gaze evenly. His gloves hung heavy at his sides, proof that no locked door, no petty slight could keep him from his purpose. As the crowd cheered Mrs. Alvarez and the rescued dog, Darnell knew the station doors might stay closed for now. But the community had just opened its eyes to the hero it almost barred from the fight. By midday, the Maple and 6th fire had become the top story on local news. Reporters clustered outside Station 53, cameras trained on the singed bay doors and the charred siding of the duplex. A local TV crew broadcast, "Captain Brooks, locked out of his own station, led the rescue that saved 2 lives and a dog." Sound bites of Darnell dragging Mrs. Alvarez to safety and smashing down the deck door with an axe looped across social media. Inside the station's break room, Lieutenant Mason played the clips on his phone. A tension crackled in the air as firefighters watched their captain hailed as a hero by the very community the station served. But Chief Reynolds paced behind them, jaw tight. He'd ordered Brooks's access revoked and now faced a media firestorm he could not contain. Within hours, Internal Affairs summoned Darnell to headquarters. He arrived in dress blues, still smelling faintly of smoke. An IA lieutenant slid a report across the desk. "Your unauthorized station entry violates Department Order 4.2. You're under investigation." Darnell's heart thundered. They would punish him for saving lives while trying to erase his lockout. He set his jaw and replied, "Investigate all you want, but first, ask why my badge was deactivated." His defiance drew IA's reluctant attention back to Chief Reynolds' office. Under growing public scrutiny, and threatened with a formal complaint to the city council, Reynolds convened a rare all-hands meeting in the station bay. Family members and neighbors pressed inside as Darnell's crew stood shoulder to shoulder with him. Chief Reynolds cleared his throat, voice echoing off the apparatus. "Effective immediately. I retract the suspension of Captain Brooks's credentials. I apologize to Captain Brooks, the firefighters of Station 53, and the residents of Maple and 6th for this mistake in judgment." The crowd exhaled, some cheering, some tearing up. Amid applause, Darnell stepped forward. "Thank you," he said, voice steady. "But an apology isn't enough. We need policies to ensure no officer is ever locked out for speaking up, no matter who's on duty." His words resonated through the bay, turning personal vindication into a call for systemic change. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the repaired station doors, Darnell watched neighbors applauding from across the street. His deactivated badge was pinned back to his turnout coat, but the real victory was the station's promise, etched into memoranda posted on every locker, that no captain, no matter his color or conviction, would ever again be locked out of the fight to protect his community. The morning after Chief Reynolds' public apology, Captain Brooks convened a station-wide meeting in the engine bay. Firefighters from every shift, veterans and rookies alike, packed in close, helmets in hand. On a whiteboard behind him, Darnell had sketched out 3 demands: formal lockout review board, anti-retaliation policy bias, and leadership training. He cleared his throat. Chief Reynolds apologized. "That's a start. But if we leave it there, any future captain, especially one who speaks up, can be shut out again." He paused, scanning determined faces. "We need structures that protect us all." Lieutenant Mason stepped forward to detail the review board. A 3-person committee, 2 senior captains and 1 external civilian appointee, that would vet any access changes before badges could be deactivated. Next, Darnell explained the anti-retaliation policy, ensuring any firefighter who reports unfair treatment is granted immediate whistleblower protections. Finally, he called for mandatory bias and leadership training for every officer in chief, sessions led by a community ombudsman to address unconscious bias, cultural competency, and constructive feedback. That afternoon, Darnell met with the city's fire commission. He presented a dossier, station logs showing his deactivation, the timeline of his unauthorized entry, and public testimonials praising his leadership during the Maple and 6th fire. Commissioners, some visibly uneasy, reviewed the evidence as TV cameras rolled. Darnell spoke clearly. A badge shouldn't be a bargaining chip. We risk lives when politics trumps procedure. 2 days later, the commission unanimously voted to adopt Darnell's proposals. An official order went out. No badge suspension without a review board hearing. All retaliation complaints routed to the city's inspector general, and a series of quarterly bias training workshops for every rank, from cadets to the fire chief. Back at Station 53, the new policies were taped beside the morning briefing roster. Darnell watched as his crew read the headlines. Fire Commission enacts landmark protections for firefighters. Later, Chief Reynolds strode in. No apology this time, just a handshake and a steady gaze. Captain, thank you for turning a crisis into reform. I look forward to joining that training with you. As Darnell clipped fresh training schedules to the bulletin board, he felt a profound shift. The station doors were not only unlocked for him, they were swinging open for every firefighter's voice, safeguarding their duty to serve without fear. And in that moment, Station 53 became more than a place to fight fires. It became a beacon of justice and accountability for the entire department. 3 months after the Fire Commission's landmark vote, Station 53 had transformed from a place of quiet tension into a forge of shared purpose. Each Monday at 0700 hours, Darnell Brooks led the new bias and leadership workshop, gathered in the apparatus bay under the glow of engine lights. Today's lesson opened with a case study, the Maple and 6th fire and the locked door incident. Darnell spoke from experience. When I was locked out, I felt powerless, until I realized that our real power lies in standing up for one another. He invited firefighters to share moments when they'd feared retaliation for speaking up. Sergeant Patel recounted reporting unsafe ladder maintenance. Lieutenant Moreno described raising concerns about shift scheduling favoritism. Every story landed with respectful silence, then a wave of affirming nods. Next, Community Ombudsman Rashida Grant walked the crew through unconscious bias scenarios, role-playing how assumptions about race or rank could erode trust in an emergency. Firefighters rotated through exercises, identifying micro-inequities in team assignments, practicing active listening when a colleague expressed concern, and drafting courage contracts, pledging to intervene if they saw injustice. By 900, the bay buzzed, not just with camaraderie, but with the conviction that every voice, regardless of tenure or skin color, carried weight. That afternoon, Darnell visited the Fire Academy to observe cadet training under the new policy. He watched as recruits completed a high-angle rope rescue drill, alternating leadership roles so every cadet, male or female, novice or veteran, commanded the operation. In debrief, Academy Captain Rivera emphasized how inclusive leadership saves lives, crediting Station 53's reforms for setting a department-wide example. Meanwhile, word of Station 53's cultural overhaul reached City Hall. The mayor invited Darnell and Chief Reynolds to host a public forum on empowered first responders, alongside police and EMT leaders who had implemented similar anti-retaliation measures. Before a packed auditorium, Darnell recounted his ordeal and the station's journey to accountability, urging every civic department to adopt protections ensuring that speaking truth never costs you your badge. By evening, local press lauded Station 53 as a department of excellence, one that not only fought fires, but also forged fireproof ethics. Firefighters returned home tired but proud, knowing their station no longer tolerated silence in the face of wrongdoing. And long after the bay doors closed each night, the lessons from those weekly workshops echoed in every heart. Courage wasn't only charging into flames, it was demanding fairness, even when it meant kicking down locked doors to do one's duty. 6 months after Station 53 adopted its new protections, Captain Darnell Brooks found himself at the helm of a department-wide task force, Firefighter Equity and Accountability, or FEA, charged with exporting the station's reforms across the entire city. On a crisp autumn morning, he convened the first FEA summit in the Fire Academy's auditorium, a room packed with battalion chiefs, union reps, and frontline firefighters from every precinct. Darnell opened with a stark reminder: when one of our own was locked out, we saw how quickly politics and bias can undermine our mission. We rewrote our station's rules to protect each other, and now it's time to rewrite the rules for every firefighter in this city. He then unveiled FEA's three-phase rollout: policy standardization. Every station would implement the Station 53 model, no badge deactivations without a three-member review board, immediate whistleblower protections, and mandatory bias interruption workshops. Peer mentoring network. Each of the city's 8 battalions would appoint 2 equity liaisons, veteran firefighters trained in conflict mediation and diversity facilitation, to serve as on-the-ground advocates. Annual Ethics Olympiad, a new competitive event where stations demonstrated best practices in leadership scenarios and bias intervention drills, with public awards for cohesive crew, transparent leadership, and courage in action. Over the following weeks, Darnell and his team crisscrossed the city. In North Station 27's echoing drill yard, he guided recruits through a simulated dark hall rescue, each team member rotating as incident commander to break down hierarchical assumptions. At West Station 12's break room, he led a heart-to-heart circle where firefighters, Black, White, Latino, and Asian, shared personal experiences of feeling silenced or marginalized on calls. In one memorable workshop, Darnell demonstrated the difference between command authority and moral authority. He recounted the Maple and Sixth Blaze, how he risked insubordination to save lives, and why the rightness of that decision echoed far louder than any chain of command protocol. His message resonated. Ethical courage isn't the absence of rules, but the willingness to defend core values when rules fail. As winter's first snow fell, the fire commissioner issued Directive 45, a department decree codifying FEA's policies. The City Council passed a resolution praising Station 53's reforms and allocating $500,000 for ongoing bias training and the Ethics Olympiad's inaugural trophy. Local media crowned Darnell Firefighter of the Year, not merely for heroics in the field, but for igniting a movement that saved the soul of the city's fire service. Back at Station 53, the changes were unmistakable. New recruits spoke openly about near misses of bias. Veteran officers sought equity liaison badges as marks of pride, and the weekly bias and leadership workshops drew standing room crowds. On the wall of the apparatus bay, a banner unfurled beneath the engine number: Station 53, where courage meets conscience. One frigid December evening, as Darnell donned his helmet for a midnight call, Lieutenant Mason clapped him on the shoulder. "Hard to believe this all started because you couldn't get inside your own station," he joked, then sobered. "Thanks for busting that door down, Captain. You didn't just save civilians, you saved all of us, too." Darnell let the words sink in as the engine roared to life. From a locked door to a citywide model of integrity, his journey had proven that true leadership doesn't wait for permission. It breaks down barriers, ignites reform, and ensures every firefighter's badge is a shield, not a shackle. As sirens echoed into the night, Darnell steeled himself for whatever blaze lay ahead, confident in the unbreakable policies and allied hearts he had forged. 5 years after Darnell Brooks forced open Station 53's doors, the entire fire department wore his reforms as standard issue. On a bright spring morning, Darnell stood in front of the newly dedicated Brooks Training Academy, its facade engraved with the motto, "Service with Integrity." Recruits in crisp uniforms filed past the banner, their eyes bright with the knowledge that their voices and their badges were equally protected. Inside, classrooms hummed with equity liaison workshops and the Ethics Olympiad trophies, once a bold experiment, lined display cases alongside historic engine helmets. Photos chronicled the transformation. Darnell smashing down the station's locked door, brave recruits mediating bias scenarios, and citywide summits where chiefs and council members applauded station-wide reforms. Deputy Commissioner Reyes, herself a graduate of Station 53's first bias training cohort, greeted Darnell at the ribbon cutting. "Your courage reshaped our department," she said, voice quivering. "This academy will carry your legacy forward." As she snipped the ribbon, Darnell thought of every firefighter who'd once feared reprisal by silence, and every life saved because they spoke up. That afternoon, at the annual Firefighters Memorial, Darnell delivered remarks beside a bronze plaque honoring first responders who stood for justice. He told cadets and veterans alike, "A locked door tried to bar me from my duty, but it could never lock out my conviction. True heroism lives where integrity and action meet." As dusk fell and rescue lights glowed on Maplewood's rebuilt engine bays, Station 53 stood proud, a beacon of reform, its doors forever open. And Captain Darnell Brooks, now Deputy Chief, walked those corridors knowing that the hardest blaze he ever fought was the fire of injustice, and that, through his unwavering stand, he had ensured it would never burn his department again.